just before we pray, I didn't know we were going to have a study today because we were told there wasn't going to be, and I found it at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then I went to the Capitol. They were having a vaccine protest, and I went and passed out some great controversies for a while. And so that was really nice, and even got invited by some people to come and speak at their church. So
Wow.
maybe it'll work, maybe not. They're not the leader of the church, but they want to try to get me there. So anyways, it was a really nice experience. I prayed before I went there and told God to open up the doors, and it seems as though He may have done so. So what's been saying that, the reason why I'm saying that is because I am not fully prepared because I wasn't expecting to have any study at all. So I'm going to kind of wing it, but I think we got some good material to work with. And so starting out, Edwin, you pray first?
Thank you, Father Lord, for this wonderful Sabbath. Thank you for the gift of life, for the gift of good health. Thank you because you've continued protecting us and guiding us this far. We pray that, Father, may your presence be upon us as we are going to study thy word. Let your spirit be upon us that, Father, it may guide us to all truth, Father. And Father, wherever we are able to learn, we may not only be hearers but also doers of thy word. In Jesus' mighty name I do pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Praise the Lord. So, one of the things I want to start with is the midnight cry. So, can anyone tell me what is the midnight cry? Nobody?
The bridegroom cometh.
As the bridegroom cometh, but is in a historical sense. I'm sorry, can you go grab me the markers?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. In a historical sense, the midnight cry
Get me a pen, Tessa. Thanks.
was given on August 19th, 1844.
That's the midnight cry.
And it was given by Samuel Sheffield Snow, and you can find the midnight cry on the Ellen White Estate by typing in the search bar SSS, and it'll bring you right to the true midnight cry. Go ahead. Thank you.
What other? Oh, a pen. I forgot my pen and my glasses over there. I did clean your eyes, see, so that's good.
Okay, this one looks good. So it was August 19th. And where was this event take place at?
Exeter.
Exeter. What state is that in?
Maine.
Exeter, Maine.
Exeter.
I'm going to try to write bigger on this thing because for the camera we really don't have the best visual. But if you know what I'm saying when I write it, then maybe you can know what it says when you can't exactly see it very well in the camera. But it's EXETER, Maine.
1843, I thought?
44.
August 19th, 1844.
Oh, okay.
So I got down.
So I didn't have all the information, and I have it now. So we're going to go ahead and add to what we already studied last time, which you can find on study number 3. We're on study number 4. And I didn't have a printout for everyone because it takes too long for my printer. So I just have to read to you what it says on that. This is a testimony. It's actually so this is a little booklet thing I found on the internet on a PDF. It says Samuel Snow and Adrian Ebbins. I'm not sure exactly who Adrian Ebbins is, but this account brings out a testimony from Joseph Bates. And remember I told you that at the camp meeting there was Snow's sister was at the camp meeting, and he told her, hey, I have some information, and she says, hey, my brother would like to speak or something. It was Joseph Bates that was on the at the pulpit. So Joseph Bates, one of the pioneers, he says, he comes, here's this, let me read this. It says, this moment was sparked by the following document written by Samuel Snow, which was first published in July 21st, 1844. So in July 21st,
July 21st.
1844, they actually published it. That means it was in like a paper. It was a newspaper was put out. It was published, and it laid out before God's people the time of the 10th day of the 7th biblical month, which was October 22nd, 1844. J.N. Lothborough records the event that sparked the midnight cry. So this was published, but it wasn't fully accepted, and it didn't have the power. God hadn't put any power into it yet. And it says, so the battle went on until July 44th, when the greatest camp meeting that was ever held by Adventists assembled at the same Exeter, New Hampshire. NH, is that New Hampshire? Anyways, it was reported that there were 3,000 at the encampment. So this was a great camp meeting. And of course, what just happened? If we're in July, what just happened in 1844? We just went through a disappointment. Jesus didn't come at the end of 1843, which is about April. Because we're talking about biblical years. The biblical year ended, the 1843 biblical year would have ended in April. And so April, June, July, we're only 2 or 3 months later, and we have a disappointment still happening, and everybody's going like, I don't know what happened. You know, we studied this, we preached about it for the last 4 years, and we don't know what happened. And so now they have this camp meeting. There's 3,000 people there. It's a great, the one that said, according to Lothborough, it's one of the greatest camp meetings that ever held. And it says, it was held in the woods in the open, no cloth pavilion for the camp services, but plenty of seats. On Sunday afternoon, Elder Joseph Bates was preaching when a man came riding up full speed into the camp, placed his horse where they kept their stock, then came into the audience and seated himself by the family of Elder John Couch with an open Bible. In a whisper, explained to them the cause of their disappointment and the midnight cry that was now due. Brother Bates was using an illustration for their course in patient waiting. His experience on nearing home on a sea voyage after a long absence. So he's just telling that Bates is talking about a sea voyage that's what he's preaching about. The power of God came upon Sister Couch as she arose and beckoned to Brother Bates. He said, "Sister, what is it?" She replied, "What you are saying is all very well and good, but here is a man who has light on the midnight cry." "Well," said Brother Bates, "then let him come up here on the platform and give it to the people." And he sat down. The minister who thus walked to the stand was S.S. Snow, who in a few sentences gave them the path to the midnight cry message. Elder James White was in the audience. I was not there, but got my light on the subject from those who were there. The midnight cry. Brother Snow thus questioned them. "Where are we in the Advent experience?" he asked. The answer, we're in the tarrying time. Jesus hasn't come, wait for him, though it tarry, it will not tarry. Right? And then it says, how long was the vision to tarry? They said until midnight. Correct answer. Oh, okay. And then it says, what is a day in prophecy? A year, right? And then he said, what would the night be? If a day is a year, then what would a night be?
You mean like one night?
It'd be 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months because
right?
A night is 6 months.
Yes, and he said, and that would, and what would then what would midnight be? And they said 3 months, because you're in the middle of the night. If it's 6 months and you're in the middle of the night, right in the middle of 6 months is 3 months, right? He says, how long have we been tarrying in the tarrying time? And they said, just 3 months. And then he said, then it is just the midnight now, and I am here with the midnight cry. In a few sentences, he explained that it was the fall of 457 that the decree went forth, and so they were short 6 months in their reckoning, showing them that the 2300 days would terminate October 22nd, 1844, instead of the spring, as they had previously supposed. Then in a strong voice he said, behold, the bridegroom cometh, on the 10th day of the 7th month, October 22nd, 1844, go ye out to meet him. As he uttered those words, the mighty power of God swept over that camp, prostrating many to the ground, suddenly turning that camp into the most powerful confessing testimony meeting. That was only the beginning of the Midnight Cry message. Of that moment, Brother Sutherland said, in the Midnight Cry, the paper of which he was the editor, it swept over the land with the velocity of a tornado. It reached hearts in different and distant places almost simultaneously in a manner which can be accounted for only by the supposition that God was in it. So it wasn't just, a camp meeting and someone had a great speech. When he came up, it was the midnight. It was the midnight cry that the Bible had spoken about, go ye out to meet him, and it fulfilled in every way the parable Ellen White has, which I don't have the quote right now, I'm sorry again, but she has a quote that says, the midnight cry has been fulfilled and will be fulfilled again to the very letter. Now, many people that have taught these truths in the past try to take everything that happened in the midnight cry and say it's going to happen to the very letter in the future. That statement is taken out of context. The statement that she's saying, she's talking about the midnight cry, which is found in Matthew chapter 25. Right after we read chapter 24, and what's Matthew 24 about?
End times.
It's about the end times. It's the end of the world. They asked Jesus, Lord, when's the end of the world, and what's going to be like at the end? In chapter 24, he tells them, just as in the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. 2 men will be in the bed, and he says that the eagles will be gathered. All that stuff that he said there would be false Christ. Don't go out there. All that's in chapter 24. Matthew 24 is the end time chapter. The next chapter, chapter 25, goes into the 10 virgins. And it was the 10 virgins that 5 are foolish and 5 are wise. That has already happened at the midnight cry. And that's also in 1844. We're told that Jesus went from the holy place to the most holy place, and that was the beginning of the marriage in which he was married to the city Jerusalem. We don't go to the marriage of the city in the city. We wait until Jesus comes, and we get to go to the marriage supper of the Lamb. But the marriage was in 1844 when he received his kingdom. We have to have the right garment on at the table when we sit at the marriage supper, but we're not at the wedding. The wedding happened on October 22nd, 1844. And that's when Christ was...
October 22nd.
October, what did I say? Yeah. So that's the marriage. But the marriage, like the Day of Atonement, is continuous because the supper hasn't happened yet, but the ceremony's happened. Right. So we're going to go to the ceremony afterwards, or the reception, you might say. So, and where he's going to receive us. Great word for it. So, so in the parable doesn't say there's going to be a meeting in Exeter and there's going to be a disappointment, all these things. The parable of the 10 virgins says that 5 are foolish, 5 were wise, some had oil, some didn't. When the call was given, some went to get oil, but they didn't have any. And when they came back with the oil, they knocked on the door, and he opened the door and says, "Hello? Hey, let us in." "I don't know you. I've already let all my people in. They came in with oil."
Yeah, they didn't have enough oil.
Right, not enough to share with others.
Right.
And you can't transfer your righteousness or your oil to anyone else anyways.
You can't.
But if you come to me beforehand and I have oil, I can increase your oil by teaching you how to get yours, or increasing your relationship with God, or whatever, by whatever means possible. But because we work together on these things, we don't just gather oil of ourselves. So when Ellen White says that it has been fulfilled, it was fulfilled. There was wise and there was wicked, right? There were those who had oil and those who didn't. Some went in, some didn't. Is that right?
That's right.
How many went in? How many went in? Well, how many were still Adventists after the disappointment of 1844?
How many people are still at
There
this?
was
5,000.
50.
50.
50,000.
Wow, that's all?
There was 50,000 Adventists on October 21st. There was 50 Adventists on October 22nd.
Wow. Oh, all of them?
Everyone left but 50 out of 50,000.
Yeah.
Oh, 50,000.
So we had this great, you go like, "Oh, we got a great church, man, we got 50,000 people." And then tomorrow it's like, "No, we're down to 50. It's like, "Oh man."
I say 50 is a good number.
It is a good number.
Yeah.
I think so.
But it seemed like we were really excited. We had 50,000, right?
No,
God's
it's
going-
like once you get too many, it's like it starts getting.
Well, we want to have, let's
You have to save as many
Can
as
I tell you
possible.
something?
we're on the
I
camera.
was just gonna say, like the one thing that's always kind of stressed me out is like overpopulation, and I thought like if we go to heaven, is there gonna be like piles of people everywhere?
First off, me and Edwin went for hours. We had to drive 5 hours or more between every place we went. And how many people did we see?
2.
None. It was desert. It was empty. There was thousands and thousands. Don't worry, you won't be overcrowded.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
The earth is big. We're living in cities. When we are in heaven, we aren't going to be living in cities.
No.
We're going to live in the country, and our driveway will be a mile long, but you won't have a problem walking it because you don't get tired.
I mean that's why.
Whatever. So, and it will also all be good. You're not going to be walking on stony gravel roads. It's going to be beautiful. So the parable saying that there was wise and foolish, that will be repeated. In the end, there will be the wise and the foolish, those who received the oil, those who didn't. The parable will be repeated to the very letter. The parable will be repeated to the very letter, not the events that fulfilled the first part of the parable. No. So people will take out a timeline and they're like, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. That means when it comes to the end, it'll be like, this happened, this happened, this happened. That is a repetition of events. That's not what Ellen White said. She says the parable would be repeated. So if you make things say things they don't, you can get caught up in forcing yourself into making up false assumptions, which eventually will lead you down a wrong path. So we want to listen to the quotes, but we don't want to take them farther than where they go. So that was the questioning. How long we been here? 3 months. What's the middle of the day? All this stuff. Okay. And then, so that's pretty much it. With that, then it has all the midnight cry stuff and so let's go through that real quick, just a reminder. So what is the first part of the midnight cry?
Richard, I don't have that paper.
You don't have it. You don't have it.
The true midnight cry.
I didn't have time to print them out.
Oh.
This one?
Yes, the true midnight. You have the true midnight cry. You have the true midnight cry, right?
1, 2.
It's
I
there in
don't
the
know where
back.
it is.
It's 7.
It's in the back.
Isn't that right there?
It's after tab 7.
Just a
I
second.
don't know.
The
I
blue.
couldn't find.
Oh, you don't have anything right here?
No,
Oh, okay. All
I
right.
don't
You
have.
must have skipped the time.
Yeah, when I was sick.
She was gone. That was probably when she didn't get it. Yep. Let me just see if I don't think I have. I will worry about that later. But what's the first tenet of the midnight cry?
The 6,000 years.
How many tenets are there?
What? 5 or 6?
5.
5.
The first one is what?
The 6,000 years.
6,000 years.
6,000 years.
6,000 years does what?
takes us to 1844
From where?
from creation.
From creation.
From
Takes us from creation.
44.
Asher was 4004 BC.
Creation, it's not 4,000, it's actually 4157
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
1844. Now, and that's just creation. So what, now, we did our chronology from Usher, right? And he's accurate, right? But he made a mistake.
Yeah,
The 1 year.
And so what did he say creation was?
4004 BC.
He said it was 4004. So who had a problem with that biblically?
Paul,
Paul. What did Paul have to say about it?
he said Asher made a mistake during the time of Judges.
He did not. He didn't know Usher. Usher was never even born yet.
No, like
He said the time of the judges was about 450 years.
yeah,
So the difference is off by 450 years. No, I'm sorry. Usher, whatever he said, and I'm just going to make a guess, but let's say he said it was 297 years.
it was
I can actually find out the difference. Let me see here. I'll actually figure it out real quick.
Asher said
So 404
289.
leaves 3, 5, 153. Difference minus 4. So we take 448. And we got 5,
Eat it outside.
1, 3. So Usher would have said something like it was 315 years in the times of the judges.
285.
So it was off by 153 years. So if you add 153, you get 448. And the reason why I say 448 instead of 450 is because Paul said it was about the time of 450. So he wasn't giving the exact time, he was just rounding it off, right? But I'm not sure exactly how they came to the point. They either went back to Judges and did a more thorough thing and found out that to come close to 450, like Paul said, it actually came out to 448, or it's just because it worked out perfectly to 1844, and since everything else does, they just recognize that, you know what, it has to land there because everything lands there. So anyways, so creation brings us to 1844, and you know what's interesting? I believe Usher says, when he says 4004, I believe he says it was October 23rd.
Yeah.
October 23rd.
So watch this.
Third, yeah.
So if Usher says that creation happened in the year 4004 BC on October 23rd, if you go around the year to make a full year, the day before that would be October 22nd.
Wait, hold on. What was that 4,000 number? You said
4004,
that's when creation.
according to Usher, that's what he came up with.
Yeah.
But he said October 23rd, 4004.
So okay, so from creation.
But if you adjust this number to the mistake that was made, that Paul said it was about 450 instead of 315, now you got to add that. Now if you change the number to 4157, now it's exactly 6,000 years to 1844.
Okay, so from the time creation to when Jesus was born.
No,
No.
till 1844.
Oh, 18. That's okay. From
And then what happens at 1844?
1844 is the midnight cry.
But what happens in 1844?
The Day of Atonement.
Yeah.
The Day of Atonement.
Not the,
Jesus,
What happens to time in 1844?
No, it means
No more time.
Time no more.
Time no more.
So, and how do we tell time? From day to day to day, right? Today, tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day. But if we're stuck in a day, then it's never tomorrow yet, right?
No.
So as long as it's not tomorrow, we're not moving forward in time.
Physically, sun up, sundown, yes, but it means.
But according to God and the way He's doing the timeline,
Right.
He's saying we're still in the Day of Atonement.
Right.
So for those feast keepers out there, can you keep 2 feasts at a time?
Can you what?
Keep 2 feasts at a time.
Feet?
Feast.
Feasts. Feast.
Can you keep Passover
Yes,
and the Day of Atonement at the same time?
No.
No.
I don't think so.
So right now, if we go around next year to spring, should we keep Passover?
No.
Why not?
We're in the Day of Atonement.
We're in the Day of Atonement.
Yeah.
We are in a feast. We are feast keepers. But we're keeping it on God's time, not our time. Not as worshipers of us doing the feast. God's antitypical feast is happening because the judgment has begun. Right? So now, so that explains this to 1844, and even with Usher to October 23rd or the 22nd, being 1 year. So, what is the point number 2? The great point of contention.
25, 20.
The times of the Gentiles.
The 25,
The 25-20. And so what do we know? We'll get back to that. So the 25-20 goes from 677 to 1844. And again, it's the same. Let me do it this way. Let's go like this and go 1844. And then the next number 3, what's number 3?
70 years? 2300 days.
The 2300 days.
Yeah.
And that ends, that's from 457 BC. This is, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it's BC. And this is BC. To 1844. So then number 4 is
70 years.
the 70 weeks.
Oh, 70 weeks.
The 70 weeks, which equals how many years?
490.
Equals 490
Yes, I'm doing that.
years. And so, just to bring all things into reference, how many times am I supposed to forgive my brother?
70 times 7.
490 times, right?
Yep.
And what is this 70 weeks about? It's about the probation of the Jews, right? He says you have 70 weeks to get your act together.
Yeah.
I'm giving you a probation.
70 weeks.
I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to forgive you 70 times 7. But after that, my forgiveness ends. You need to be in line by then. In the meantime, I will wink at you. I will deal with you. I will send my prophets to you. Even though you stone them, I'll send more prophets to you. In fact, I'll send my son. That is the parable of what? That's the parable of the vineyard.
Oh, yeah.
God said He built a vineyard and He put a hedge around it, and then He went off to a far place. But He sent servants to come and collect the food, and they said they beat Him and stoned Him and kicked Him out of the garden. And then they did it again, and they said, "Well, I'll send my son." So who is the garden?
Jesus.
The garden.
Is us.
Us.
The garden is the Jews.
Oh, the Jews.
He set up
Oh, we're not talking about the vineyard with. Okay.
in the parable of the vineyard. God set up a vineyard. He set up the Jews.
I know, but when you just said something about a vineyard, I thought of that one story of Jezebel where she sold. Never mind.
Yeah. So God set up this vineyard, which is the Jewish nation, and put a hedge around it, right? He's got a
Yes,
hedge
he
of
did.
hedge of what? Hedge of protection, right? And He says, "These are my people." And then He sends the prophets to His people to bear fruit, and they stone the prophets, right? They stone the prophets. So the servants are my servants, the prophets, right? I do nothing lest I first reveal it through my servants, the prophets.
Prophets.
So the prophets are stoned, and then He says, "I will send my son. Surely they'll listen to him." And they said, if we get rid of him, we get the vineyard.
To ourselves.
We'll inherit it. So they get rid of Jesus, and they can take over the church. Now, when this happens, when Jesus comes, who are the people in charge? Who are the people in charge in those days?
The scribes and
Herod.
the Pharisees.
The Pharisees and who? The scribes and Pharisees. What was the
Sadducees.
who? The Sadducees.
Sadducees.
So were the Sadducees and Pharisees good friends?
No.
They were like mortal enemies, right? But they kind of had to work together because they were all Jews, and so they had to tolerate each other.
But they weren't.
But they weren't friends. But you know what? They sure got along when it came to crucifying Christ.
Yeah, they sure did.
So we always see that when it comes to crucifying Christ, all sides will come together. So, so number 5, we'll get back on this. We're still on that subject. But in number 5, with the is what? What's the 5th thing? Types.
Yeah.
Yeah, type and anti-type.
Type and anti-type. And so, what is a type?
A type is the first.
This is a dry eraser.
Yeah.
It's a type of
And it-
marker.
Marker.
A permanent marker is also a type of a
Type
marker,
of a
right?
marker.
But they're not the same, are they?
No.
No.
So these are types,
Uh-huh.
but a marker, we'd have to have one that was like the marker, and everything else is just like a copy, but kind of like that. It's like a shadow of it.
And, yeah,
It has the same similarities,
anti-type
but
is-
it's not the marker.
Right.
So who is the lamb?
Jesus.
Jesus is the lamb. So all the lambs that were killed, the physical lambs that were
They
killed,
were anti-typical.
no,
No.
they were types.
Oh, they were.
Christ is not a type. Christ is the lamb.
The
He's the
right.
original.
Right. So all these lambs down here, they're types of Christ. They're not a Christ.
Right.
Joseph was a type of Christ.
Moses.
Moses was a type of Christ. They're all types of Christ, but they're not the Christ. What does the word anti mean?
Against.
Anti is a
Anti or opposite or against.
Opposite.
So to say anti-type means it's not a type. And if it's not a type, then what it has to be? It has to be the original. All you have is the original and the types. If it's not a type, then it's the original. It's the anti-type. It's not a type. It's the actual thing.
Oh.
And see, we think of anti. We think of anti as like that's like a negative. That should come second. But actually, anti-type means it is the original, not. It's backwards thinking for us.
First.
It's backwards thinking for us to think this way.
Yeah,
but it's
because
but in the
it
English
sounds
language,
strange.
right? But in the English
Because
language, it means exactly what it
Antichrist
means.
Is Antichrist, which is the darkness.
No.
And then you-
What?
The Antichrist is in place of Christ, right?
The Antichrist means it's not Christ.
No,
Right.
but in place
Another
of.
Christ.
But just like, see, anti-type means it's not a type, which means that he's the original. But when you say you're not Christ, you're just not Christ. It's not saying that you are the original Christ. Anti doesn't mean type.
No.
You're mixing type with the word anti. Anti doesn't belong with type. You put it with type, and now type has the type and the original. Right? You have the type and the
There is
anti-type.
no anti-type or anti-typical?
Anti-typical is the same as
confused.
anti-type. Type and typical are the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Typical, typical.
Typical.
So it's saying that Christ is not a type.
No, he's the original.
Right. And so the anti-typical Day of Atonement means it's not the type of the atonement.
That's the original.
What was the typical atonement? The
Jesus.
type.
The type was 1 day.
One day every year on the 10th day of the 7th month.
Yeah.
It was called the Day of Atonement. That was a
Right.
type.
Right.
The antitypical Day of Atonement is the Day of Atonement. It's not the type, it's the real
The
thing.
real one.
So when we get to 1844, it's not a day because it's not the type.
No.
It is the real one, and it's
Yeah.
bigger and better. Like Christ is not the lamb, he's not the type, he is Christ. He's way bigger and more important than a furry little animal. Just like the Day of Atonement has a lot more judgment. Plus, how much were you judging on the typical day, on the regular day, the typical day?
Everything
Everything for the whole year.
1 year.
for 1 year, yeah.
The antitype, the antitypical Day of Atonement deals with all
Everything
history,
forever.
all the way back, every year. It's the true judgment. The other one was really just a play. They are judging the year's things, but they were only judging the year's things for the Jews. This one is for
It's
everybody,
For everyone.
the Jews and the Gentiles. Does that make sense? Are you getting it, Chris? Are you?
Sure.
Sure.
Do you have a question? Do you have a question?
Anti,
it's
okay,
not.
I get it.
Okay.
Anti-typical is the original because we're not.
It's not a type.
It's not a type. It is the original.
Right.
Types come after. I got that.
Right. Okay. All right.
Okay, but when you
But
say
it can be
anti-typical, anti-typical, I got it.
Yeah. Okay.
I get it.
Okay.
I'm there.
So, here's the thing, though. So, what was it? What was it that?
Makes sense.
Where did this all come into vision? Vision. When did all of this come into vision?
Ellen White.
Ellen White had a vision, right? What vision?
The midnight
The
cry.
Midnight Cry.
Her first
Her
vision.
first vision, yeah.
So when God's going to give a vision to His church and He's going to start the ministry of a prophet, and He gives it to Ellen White, you think it's an important vision, the first one, or is that going to set the stage for everything else afterwards, right?
Yeah.
I tell the end from the
Begin.
beginning. And so in that vision, she says what? She says, there was a,
Midnight cry.
she said, there I saw the people on a path high above the world.
And there was a light
A light behind them, which
Behind.
means they'd already been through the disappointment. It has to be before the disappointment because that's about when she's seeing this. So there is some light from God that's behind us. And what is the light of God?
The midnight cry.
The Word of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The word of God.
Thy Word is a light unto my feet. So if something from the Word of God is behind them, some knowledge from the Word of God, some light that comes out of that book is shining back there.
Behind.
And what is shining back there? 6,000, 2520, 2300, 70 weeks, and types. These truths that came out of the Bible is a shining light behind them that will take you all the way to heaven. Now, are we going to be preaching the three angels' messages until Jesus comes?
Yes.
And how are we going to do that?
If we know, if we didn't participate in the first and second, we should go back and
So one of our messages,
To go back to the
one of our messages is,
beginning of the
one of our messages is come out of her, my people. Come out of who?
Babylon.
Okay, that's pretty simple, but Babylon was a long time ago.
Right, but it's the
How do we know that the papacy in the future becomes Mystery Babylon? Because we have to go, when the Bible says Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, pagan, papal, and then we go to Revelation and we've got the 7 heads and the 10 horns, which, by the way, is a beast. And it says pagan Rome, pagan Rome. So this beast and this beast are the same.
yeah.
How many horns does the dragon have?
horns.
10.
10 horns.
7.
And he also has crowns on his heads too, doesn't he? Has he got crowns on his head?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Kingdom.
They're kingdoms. So there's kingdoms, there's 7 crowns on 7, there's 7 heads and 10 crowns. Over here, we have 1 head with 10 horns. So where's the other 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome.
It's all of them.
The stories of Daniel are the same as the stories in Revelation.
Right.
They're not different books, it's the same book.
The same
Daniel
book,
says metal in 2, he says beast in 7, and he says goats and rams, notice this, these are all unclean animals.
Right.
These ones are clean animals. A ram and a goat are both clean animals. They both chew the cud and they both have a split hoof. But there's a problem with these clean animals. This one has 1 horn bigger than another. He is not a spotless ram. And this one has 1 horn. He's a defect also. He's genetically defected. So even though these are clean animals, they're not clean.
Right.
See, so, and the enemies of God are always perverted in some way or another, are not clean.
That's right.
So, so this is a lot of repetition and whatever, but again, it's good to repeat and to solidify it. And then so we have 7 heads and 10 horns, and this is all the same. So this message can't go out unless you have this information, because I can't just say, the papacy is the Antichrist. Well, where's your proof?
Yeah.
You just make that up? You just picked a religion you didn't like and started attacking them? You know, so this is the evidence from God.
You have to go.
Because I can say it was in the time when Rome was united in the legs, pagan Rome. It was the Iron Monarchy of Rome and ruled everyone.
Uh-huh.
Just like Greece ruled everyone, and Rome ruled, Medo-Persia ruled everyone.
Right.
But then the toes come and it's divided up. But then those 10 divisions, the divisions of Europe, they are controlled by kings, but they are all under the power of the papacy, because now that he's become an ecclesiastical power, he can rule over them and they can have a king still. And he doesn't have to fight with the king, because I'm the king of heaven, you're the king of earth. Mm-hmm. Who do you think scares the people more? That if I die, I get resurrected to hell? Am I going to worry about a sword that's going to hurt for 5 minutes, but I'm going to spend eternity in hell? Am I more afraid of serving my king, or more afraid of serving the Pope? Am I going to go burn forever, or just die in a field of blood? The people without having any knowledge.
Am I going to die in a field of blood?
So you would give your life on the battlefield for your king, but you were more afraid of losing your soul for the Pope. Mm-hmm. So without the truth being there, without the Protestant Reformation, everybody's hope was in the only hope they had, which was Christianity, which was perverted and distorted at the time. And if you tried to say it straight, you were burnt to the stake or killed or whatever. So we need this. So God gives us this midnight cry, and then now the 2520 is a part of it. When the 2520 was being taught in our day, who rejected it?
The Adventists.
Which Adventist?
The conference.
The conference rejected it. What about the independents?
Some of them.
The independents, for the most part, also rejected it. So who do we have here? We have those who are the popular conference, which would be the Pharisees.
Right. And then the Sadducees.
And then you have the Sadducees. Now, are they mortal enemies?
Yeah.
Does the conference and did the conference and non-conference get along very well?
No.
But did they unite to fight
Yes.
this truth?
Yes, they do.
It's nothing new under the sun. It's the same thing. That's the issue. And for those who
nobody teaches it.
Well, they don't teach it because they're both Sadducees and Pharisees.
Right.
They're not out there. We're trying to give what's on the Mount of Olives. We're giving Christ, who is, this is Christ right here.
Right.
So, I'll show you another cool thing. So we have the Christ and Antichrist. Since we brought up Christ and Antichrist, let's look at Christ and the Antichrist. Who is the Antichrist?
Someone
The papacy.
Another Christ. Somebody
I thought you were asking
claiming.
me.
In
Who is
place
going to
of,
be?
in place
Claiming to
of,
be
in
Christ.
place of.
I've heard the right answer and I've heard the wrong answer.
What Hay said.
The papacy is the Antichrist.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not an individual.
No.
It's a seat. It's an authority.
Right.
The dragon,
You know.
the dragon gave a seat, power, and great authority to the beast. So watch this. So if we look at the papacy, and what's the time period for the papacy?
From,
1260.
It's 1260 years.
right.
What's that from?
From
That's all right.
The Dark Age.
Come on, this is really baby food. You got to be snapping on this one here.
wait. 457.
That's 2,300 days.
Yeah. Wait.
When's the time of the end?
I know 1798.
1798.
1798.
It begins.
What's 1,260 minus, or 1798 minus 1260?
538.
538.
Yeah.
The papacy, the Dark Ages is 538 to 1798. Now, before that, if we go back 30 years, is 508. What is 508?
Where Constantine, I think. Oh, what was his name?
He might be involved a little bit somehow, but he was 321 AD when he made the Sunday law.
Okay.
Constantine.
That's what he just said.
Oh.
I said 508, not 321 AD. Okay, let's look at the chart. Look at that. 508. Bam. It says, taking away the daily sacrifice, Daniel 12, 11, and 12. Did he take away the daily sacrifice in 508? Is that true? Remember, the charts don't lie. But is that true? It's not true. Because this is a direct quote from the Bible, which is truth. But even our King James Bible has a word in it that does not belong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What word is that?
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice. So let me just go ahead and read that to you. And why is that okay? Why is the King James without error, and yet at the same time has something in it that's wrong? How does that work?
That is provided. They call
Do you know?
a word that is.
As a people.
How is something inerrant and yet have an error in it?
Because someone wrote it wrong.
No, it's those are one of those words that people put to try make the thing make
Well,
sense.
the Jesuits
Supplied one.
changed the whole Bible.
Okay, so all the words in there's some words in the King James Bible that are not from the original Greek and Hebrew. And how do you know if they're from the Greek and the Hebrew or not?
They are italicized.
They're italicized.
Oh.
When you're reading through it's all like all the wording's normal, and then one word's italicized. It's italicized on purpose. It never existed in the Bible. So when we're talking in a language and it sounds like choppy Japanese in their language, when they made the translation into English, they said, well, without the word with here, it doesn't make sense to our minds the way
So
we
they
think.
added
So
it
they
in.
add the word with or the or and or whatever. And so they're trying to help you understand it. They're not changing the meaning for most places, but in this case, if the word that they added makes a change in people's thoughts, and it also changes the doctrine. So here's what I'll read it right here. In early writings, page 74, and we'll just start up. This is about the charts and the gathering and all the stuff we're studying. It's 74, the gathering time, September 23rd. The Lord showed me that He stretched out His hand a second time to recover His remnant, the remnant of His people. What was the first time He sent out? He tried to recover His remnant.
First time?
The first time He did it is when He sent Christ down
Right.
to die for their sins and to call them to repentance, and they didn't come. So when's the second time that He tried to gather His people?
During the gathering time.
He at the gathering time at 1844 when He was trying to.
Right,
He's
yeah.
now we've been in the dark ages. We've been going through all
Yeah,
this,
when He was
and
bringing-
now God's going. I'm going to try to recover my people out of all this darkness. So a second time, and He says this time is called the gathering time because He's trying to get His
Yeah.
people, the remnant,
The remnant.
which we become the remnant, right? And who comes out of this? The remnant,
The remnant.
right? So it says. He says he stretched out His hand a second time to recover the remnant of His people, and the efforts must be redoubled in the gathering time. In the scattering, Israel was smitten and torn, but in the gathering time, God will heal and bind up His people. In the scattering time, efforts made to spread the truth be of but little effect, accomplished but little or nothing. But in the gathering, when God has set His hand to gather His people, efforts to spread the truth will have their designed effect. All should be united and zealous in the work. Divided into conference, non-conference, Sadducees, Pharisees. All should be united in the work. I saw that it was wrong for any to refer to the scattering, for examples to govern us now in the gathering. For if God should do no more for us now than He did then Israel would never be gathered. And when is she saying this? She's saying this, here it's dated 1882, But that's when the book was written, Early Writings. It was a compilation. But when she actually wrote this, it's right after the disappointment. And so she is saying that we have entered into a new phase. We're now in the gathering. We used to be in the scattering. And so if we just changed from one to the other, when did the change happen? October 22nd, 1844. Right? So, and was God gathering his people or preparing to gather them or getting them ready to be gathered when Martin Luther's preaching about you can't buy your way to heaven, and then the Baptists are going like, well, you can't just baptize children, they got to repent. And then all the different doctrines, and then we didn't quite get the Sabbath yet, but we had come out of darkness, right?
Right.
And so
But back to the first part. You said there was something that they changed it, or they added a word.
yes, okay, so that's going next. So then it says, and it says, I have seen the 1843 chart was directed by the hand of the Lord, and that it should not be altered. You can't have noise on here, bud. Turn that off or out in the other room, please. Thank you. Okay, I have seen that the 1843 chart was directed by the hand of the Lord, and that it should not be altered, that the figures were as he wanted them, and that he had his hand over and hid a mistake, singular, one mistake, in some of the figures, so that none could see it until his hand was removed. What was the mistake?
The 1844, the one here.
1843 was wrong,
Yeah.
but it was right.
Right.
When we read about the hand being removed, she says the figures that showed, these figures that showed that it would end in 1843 actually showed that it would end in 1844. You see, here's our problem. Is that a date?
That's a year.
That's 1843 years. If the date started on the 4th, it would end in 1847, right? And this is not a date. This is a distance. What's left? 1843 years are left. Not the year 1843.
Okay, this is where it gets a little confusing for me.
Right. So this is where I want to clear up for even everyone on the camera too. This is not a date.
And I'm thinking you're talking...
We're talking 2,520 years. It doesn't matter where those years are. We
Right.
start out with 2,520 years. We have a basket full of 2,520. We take out 677 apples, and how many years are left? 1,843. Now, do we know where the ending and beginning point of that is? No.
No.
But if it starts off in the middle of if it starts off in say the 4th month of the first year, then you got to go 4 months past the end of that year, and it'll go into the next one. And since it's actually 1843 years, since we're starting in the years at the year 1 AD, because this is the BC years and this is 80 years, we have to go 143 years forward. So if we go 103 years forward and we started 4 months late already, we have to go forward 4 months. But in this case, it was 7 months because it's the 7th day of the 10th day of the 7th month.
Right.
We had to move forward 7 months.
To make it...
And that brings us past the end of 1843 into 1844 to October 22nd, 1841.
I understood there's...
So this is not wrong. See, this is not wrong. Because this is 1843 years, not a date. It's how many years are left.
Okay, I got it.
Again, watch this. This
Conundrum, okay.
there's no AD/BC here.
No, I know, but what we're doing is you're taking a timeline and you're starting from here to here, and we're not...
But this is not a timeline.
No, it's not a time...
it's
No,
not.
I know it's not a timeline. Go ahead.
Right. So it's an amount. So we got to take this and apply it.
Right.
And if we apply, and like I said, if we applied it from the day from year 5, then it would end in 49 or whatever. So this isn't saying 1843 the year. It's saying 843 years left to add on to the 677 previous. And then it comes to 2,520 years.
20.
That make sense?
Like your
Or not?
birthday. You're born
Yeah.
No,
50 years.
listen. I understand the concept.
See, and this one here is also not a date.
It's kind of like when you're thinking of someone's age.
The reason,
I
It's
get it.
not a
There's
day, it's an
365
amount.
days in a year. I get all that. And sometimes if someone's born in like August the 3rd, and then you go a year.
here's where the problem comes in and why it's so hard to understand. Because we're starting at the beginning of from AD to BC. So we're starting at 0 and we're counting 1. So as we count these years,
Right.
this ends about 1843. So you're thinking like, oh, that's the date. Nope. That's how many years
No,
you got
I
to.
understand. I don't understand, but I understand. I understand the concept of what you're talking
Right.
about. No, I don't. So I don't need anyone to explain all that to me. I got
Well,
it.
I'm also doing it for the camera, and someone might have the same
But
problem
what
you're having
I'm
too.
saying is
So.
when people are saying, no, it's good. I got it.
Right.
I understand the concept. But in my mind, for some reason, I had 1843 as the date. Don't ask me why. but I
Right,
did.
and so did everybody else.
Yeah,
It's just a natural.
Listen, all the Adventists were turning it into a date,
right.
Right.
but it's not a date.
Because
It's
that's
the
how
sum
they
of a
teach it.
math problem.
Right.
It's not a date. So when Ellen White says that all the figures were correct, it is correct. If you take 677 away from 2520, what do you get? 1843. It's correct.
Yes.
Our problem is we took that and turned a length of
year.
time, and we made it into a date, and it's not a date. It's what's left over.
The remaining.
Right. When we take those remaining and we put it on the calendar, it's going to come out to 1844. So there's nothing wrong on this chart. It's actually correct.
Right.
So even this right here, this is not wrong. 1843 is not wrong. The mistake is in our thinking. So when he put his hand over it, he put his hand over this, over the fact that it was not a date, so that we all got it wrong, because he was testing this, right? It was a test. It was a disappointment. God had planned that disappointment on
Right.
purpose, right?
Right.
So now back to the daily in the 508.
Who would be remaining after?
So we just read that about the chart, about his hand being removed, and then we can read that later on in the early writings where she says when the hand was removed that these dates actually proved that it was 1844. And they do. And if anyone has a problem with that, email me and we'll go through the whole thing a million times over.
A million times.
Because it's going to take you that many. If you're having a problem, it'll probably take you that many times to just get over the hump.
You might just have to do that then.
Okay, so it says,
Over and over and over.
but now what does it say next? What is the next thing she says? She says, I saw in relation to the daily
The daily.
that the word sacrifice was supplied by man's wisdom and does not belong to the text. So there you have, out of the prophet's mouth, it does not belong in the text. Plus, you can just go look at it. It's in italics. It doesn't belong in the Bible. There is no such thing as a Old Testament that says sacrifice in it.
No.
It says daily. But what does daily mean?
Every day.
Every day. So could you say if I went swimming every day that I was continually swimming?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm continually doing it. I'm not stopping.
Every day,
I do it. Yeah, I'm not doing it all 24 hours, but I'm continually swimming.
continually.
I'm an
The-
avid swimmer is what
so-
I would say. I
so-
swim all the time.
So like when we're talking about time keeps on going. That's seconds, hours, whatever. But when we stop time, it's because the days aren't going forward. So now, even though all of these things are time, seconds, hours, whatever, we're judging time by days. So we say that it's a Day of Atonement. We're not going forward in time.
So go back to sacrifice. Okay.
Okay. So if it's not, if so, the word is tamid in the Hebrew, and that word means continual or daily. In other words, constantly.
Okay.
Constant.
Constantly continual.
All the
so
time.
why did they put the word?
Or if you do something constantly or continual, what are you doing? You're doing it daily.
Every day.
So they translated
Like a routine.
a routine. Yes.
Right.
Now, the Bible says, let's go back. Let's go ahead and look at that. We'll do a daily study right now. So if we go back to Daniel, I'm just going to look up the word daily, and we'll just go to each verse. It'll pop up all of them. And we'll just go through them, and we'll ask some questions. Because what is it that our church teaches the daily is? Anybody know? And the clue is daily sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
So what does our church think that the daily sacrifice is?
When they sacrifice the lamb every day?
Absolutely. So they're talking about the priestly ministry, and because Christ died and became a high priest after the order of Melchizedek, they are saying that the daily is talking about Christ's heavenly ministry. But let's see if that lines up with Scripture. So understand this. Our church teaches this is Christ's heavenly ministry. Now, our church also teaches truth. That's the thing. We're teaching two different things. Whether you're in the Sadducees or you're with the Pharisees, they're both teaching different things, but they're all members of the same church, right?
That's right.
The Sadducees and the Pharisees were all Jews, right? They were all Christ's church when He
Right.
came. He came to save them all, but they weren't believing the same things.
No,
So we have some things in the Bible that we have two different beliefs on because we can't make up our mind. But the truth is there. Oh, and let me do this. I already went out of it. Anyways, Ellen White says that those who that were in the experience before 1844 had the correct. I need to read that. We'll go back and do it. All right. So back to early writings here. Let's not get ahead of myself. So it says, I saw that in relation to the daily, that the word sacrifice was supplied by man's wisdom. It does not belong to the text, and that the Lord gave the correct view of those who gave the judgment hour cry. So I'm sorry I said that too quickly. And the Lord gave the correct view of it to those who gave the judgment hour cry. Who gave the judgment hour cry? The pioneers in the days right before 1844 said, behold, the bridegroom cometh.
Right.
They had it correct.
Right.
So if we
That
want to
was
know,
before they were-
we want to know what the correct view is, we don't go and ask Doug Batchelor or someone today. We go back before 1844 to those who gave the loud cry, or the midnight cry, I'm sorry. The loud cry is future. They gave the midnight cry and find out, what did you guys say the daily was? And what did they say? So here you have the daily mentioned in 508, the taking away of the daily. Now, if they put the daily here with this date, 508, then whatever that date, whatever happens on this date, will tell you what it is.
Really quick again though, but why did they put the word sacrifice in there? That's what I'm...
The translators of the Bible, the King James translators,
Yes.
were trying to make it understandable. So when it said daily, they, in their mind, in their
See,
theology,
that to me, that's...
they had it wrong in their mind.
More like a daily route, make it part of your, like a routine, but they put like a sacrifice.
Right, but what they did is they were having a false theology in their mind. But unfortunately, since they all had the same false theology, they all agreed, oh, this would be daily sacrifice. If there had been a difference between two different things, they would have argued over it and says, well, you can't put your doctrine in, because they actually made sure that you couldn't put false doctrines in by making the translators separated. And if they came together with manuscripts translated wrongly, then they'd regulate, hey, how come these don't match up? Oh, you tried to slip that in, didn't you? Oh yeah, well, let's look at the text. It doesn't say that, so we're going to write it correctly. And so that was protecting from people slipping in their doctrines. But since everybody was in agreement, it got past them.
Put it in.
Because they all agreed it was right, but it wasn't.
But it wasn't, okay, good, okay. So really, they should not have put that word in there. Like,
Yeah, but they did italicize it, saying, and then what they're saying to you is, we translated it this way, but we added that word, so
So feel free to,
take it away.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now Ellen White only talks about one word in the Bible that she says doesn't belong there, the sacrifice.
Ellen White says what now again? I'm sorry.
There's only one word in the Bible that she ever argues about shouldn't be in it, and it's the sacrifice.
And that,
Right here, this is it.
in that specific,
Yes.
Place. Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Because there's
so
Because that word's in there in other places.
So the chart doesn't lie. It quoted the Bible. And it says 508, the daily would be removed. Now, it can also be okay to use the word sacrifice, but not in the way they were intending it. Or maybe You know, they could have had it right, and we just don't like the way they worded it. I'll explain that in a minute. But if we look at the 1850 chart, everything on the 43 is on the 50. So we go to the middle line here, and that's where we found it before, the middle line, wasn't it? And we get down here, and it says 490, and we got 508. It says, the daily taken away, Daniel 11:31. Okay, we're going to look at that. But it says pagan dominion or the daily. So what is this saying? It's saying that pagan dominion is the daily. The daily was, this is what, I'll tell you what the daily was, and then we'll look at this text. The daily was the continual sacrificing of children to false gods, the continual worshiping of idols, the continual paganism, the continual bad smell in God's nose, the thing that made him irritable at all times. This paganism, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, all of this paganism, that's why we call it pagan Rome, pagan. This was removed and taken out of the way. So when it says the daily was taken away, it's saying that paganism was removed and replaced with Christianity. A pagan form of Christianity,
Right.
but still replacing the old form of paganism. So the old form was like burning big bonfires and all these other modes of satanic worship. The sun worship is now replaced with the sun worship, which is still sun worship.
Right.
But, so let's read these texts.
okay,
But there was a change in the way that the whole world worshipped. Paganism was removed, and it was no longer a religion.
Right.
There's not a bunch of pagans in England right now worshiping paganism.
No.
They're actually going back now. People are trying to bring back witches and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
So it's coming back, but it was removed in 508 because the power, seat, and great authority was given to the beast. And so he took over the religion and said, we're no longer going to worship these gods. Now we're going to worship these gods.
That was Constantine, right?
Well, he made this first Sunday law, and he changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday,
Right.
but he is not necessarily the one who took out this. So what happens here? I'll show you. So the last people that were still holding on to some doctrines before the papacy could become fully in power was the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, and the Heruli.
Yeah,
And these were removed. And when they were removed, then there was no opposition, and then the papacy had full reign. So these weren't just removed for no reason. They were removed because they were in the Pope's way. And with the bear with 3 ribs in its mouth, Medo-Persia couldn't take over its full rule until it had removed 3 kingdoms that were in its way. So there's a repetition of removing 3 to take over full power. So there's connections there. We're not going to get into all that right now. I got about 5 things hanging in the wind right now. So let's go back to the word daily in Daniel and deal with that first. You want to know what the issue is. It's not a big deal. You're not going to be saved or not saved if you don't understand it daily. But you want to understand what this history is. You want to understand what these numbers. You want to understand what the Bible's talking about. Then you've got to figure it out. And so we're just going to find out. And there's 2 views. So either they're both wrong, they're both right, or one is right and the other's wrong. But no, they can't be both right. It's either both wrong or one is right. But since our church is teaching us today the wrong one, why are they doing that? And let's find out if it makes sure that we're not making a mistake and maybe they're right and we're calling the wrong person wrong. So let's just look at the verses. So, there's a few of them. They're all in Daniel. Okay, so in Daniel chapter 8 is where we see it 3 times. And that's going to be Daniel chapter 8 and verse 11, 12, and 13. They're all right there. So it says, And yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away. Let's go up a little bit and see who we're talking about here. Okay, let's verse 8, verse 9. Chapter 8, verse 9. And out of one of them came forth a little horn. So what are we talking about?
The papacy.
But what are we talking about? We're talking about the 10 horns.
Yeah.
Out of one of them came forth, or among them came forth a little horn. And that's the papacy, right? It says,
Papacy.
and it says, and out of one of them came forth a little horn waxed exceeding great towards the south, towards the east, and towards the pleasant land. It waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. So what do you think that means? Who are the stars of heaven?
The angels.
Angels, or like people like Luther or Huss, or
Right.
all the great,
Messengers.
the people that God has raised up.
Right.
But it says that this power had stomped some of them into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Did it burn?
did.
Did it burn some of them at the stake? Did
Yeah.
Did it
Chop off
kill?
their heads.
Yeah, do different things. So this power, this little horn, was able to hurt some of the stars of heaven.
Right.
And so it says, and he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary is cast down. Now, if the daily sacrifice means the sacrifice, they're saying it's the heavenly
Right.
thing. First off, how many sacrifices are going on in heaven?
None.
None.
How many ever did go off in heaven?
None.
One. No,
Only
not in
Jesus.
heaven.
None.
None.
So there is no such thing as a daily sacrifice in heaven to start with.
No.
But our church teaches that the daily sacrifice is Christ's priestly ministry in the holy place. That daily he is praying for us and interceding.
Right.
But where's the sacrifice? Daily sacrifice.
There isn't.
There isn't. Right, because that word never existed.
No, I think they just took it out of context.
They did. They took
That's
something
basically
that didn't
right.
belong and made a whole doctrine out of it.
Basically,
Right.
Right. That's the con-
So let's keep on reading. It says, and the host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and cast it down to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Has anybody or anything brought Christ down?
No.
Can anything interfere with his work up there, down here?
No.
And then it says, then I heard that one saint speaking to another saint, and that certain saint was spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? Now this is beautiful. I haven't seen this before till just now, and this is just gorgeous. I love this. How I heard of one saint speaking to another saint, saying unto that certain saint, which spake, how long shall the vision concerning the daily,
Sacrifice.
and we'll put the sacrifice here.
In Roman.
And then what does it say? And it says, and the transgression of desolation. And the transgression, this is so beautiful. This just solidifies everything. Transgression
Of desolation.
of desolation.
To give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden
Underfoot.
Okay. This is so beautiful. So this is the antagonist, right? To trodden down who?
The saints.
The sanctuary
The sanctuary and the hosts.
and the host. So watch this. Are you telling me that the daily and the transgression of desolation is attacking the sanctuary and the host?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
The daily and the transgression of desolation is trampling upon the sanctuary and the host.
Mhm.
So if this is Christ's heavenly ministry, is Christ trampling upon the host?
No.
Can this be Christ's ministry in heaven?
No.
So who is it?
The devil.
The purple room. Purpose.
The daily was removed in 508.
Yeah.
What is it?
Pagan.
Paganism.
Paganism.
So the daily, which is paganism, and we read it right here. It says
It was removed.
it says pagan
Pagan
dominion or the daily taken away 508.
508.
So in 508, paganism
Was removed.
And
is crossed out and replaced by
Another form.
papalism. That's like the crown of the Pope.
Yeah.
Replaced by papalism. So one has to be removed so that the other can take place.
Right.
These three guys here had to be
Yeah.
removed. The three horns had to be removed so that he could sit on the throne of Victor. Right? So in 508, the daily's taken away. That means Babylon, Middle Persia, Greece, Rome, their religions wiped out, replaced by this. That's what the daily is.
Right.
It's the continual worship of Satan, replaced by now the Christian work, the Tamid, the Tamid.
So-called Christian.
Now, watch this. So we have two here, and we know that we said the daily was paganism, right?
Mm-hmm. And now it's papal.
And what is that?
Transgression of desolation.
Yeah.
What is it?
Papal Rome.
Why?
Because that's.
Because it's
what
not
they
this. It said this
Because
and
they
that.
replaced
It
it.
didn't say this is that.
No.
It says this and this trample the sanctuary and the host.
Mm-hmm.
Who tramples God's people on here? Babylon, Middle Persia, Greece, Rome, pagan, papal Rome. These are the tramplers.
Right.
And when are they going to stop trampling?
When Jesus comes.
1844, at the end of 2300 days. How long are we going to be trampled? Well, until they're done, and they're done, and they're done, and they're done, and they're done. When they're all done, then the sanctuary and the host will not be trampled anymore.
And when are you getting to Islam?
Oh, yeah.
So now we just.
I mean, that's-
But here, watch this. By looking at this one verse, and it has two powers here that are going to trample the sanctuary and the host for 2300 days, right?
Right.
And so we know that this is paganism. That only leaves this to be what?
Papal Rome.
It has to be papal. Papalism.
Yeah.
So
Papism.
that also tells us now, as we read our Bible, whenever we come up against desolating power, or the two desolating powers, we're talking about paganism.
Papal Rome.
But when we talk about the two desolating powers, then we're talking about paganism and papalism.
Papalism.
Right? So now because of association, the way it is in the sentence, and how we know that these are
Well, hey,
these are the beasts to attack.
Richard, they're kind of the same.
Mhm.
They are.
They are. It's
They are. And what is papalism? It's just paganism.
paganism,
Right.
dressed up in
Yeah,
a white
yeah.
hat.
But
Other
it's
form.
paganism under the false Christ, not under
Right.
Baal and
Right.
Ishtar and all this other stuff.
All that.
Because
Yeah.
So we
they have
removed
all of
this
They
form.
kind of came together.
We removed this form and replaced it with that form, but both of these are still persecuting the sanctuary and host of God's true people. They
That's
are not
right.
God's true people,
No.
right?
They're
So,
not.
so that verse right there, verse 12, is beautiful because mentioning both of them, and you know that the daily is paganism. That's where I did wrong. Paganism. Then you know that this one has to be papalism. Now, let's go to the next verse, and it's verse 11. And it says, "And arms shall," okay, this is in 1131, and we're talking, I'm pretty sure we're talking about the papacy at this point. Well, they have to be because it's a daily. So it says, "And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate." Okay, so if you remove the daily and you replace it with
Abomination.
that makes desolate, the desolation, right? Transgression and desolation.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's saying if you get rid of paganism, it's going to be replaced by papalism. That's exactly what Daniel 11, verse 31 is saying.
Yeah.
An arm shall stand on his part. Now, why are arms standing on his part? Let me ask you this. Well, who is paganism in Rome? Caesar and all those armies. Remember all
Right.
those armies? The gladiator,
Right.
the Roman soldiers?
Mhm.
How many Roman soldiers did the Pope have?
Hundreds of
He didn't have
He
any.
didn't have any.
The Pope
Why
has
would
no
he?
armies.
Mm-mm.
You know who guards the Pope? Those guys with the striped outfits on with the long spikes
Mhm.
on spears?
Mhm.
The Swiss Guard. The Swiss Guard guards the Vatican, but they have no armies. So the Pope, he always has to hire mercenaries and vagabonds to do his dirty work. So when it says arms stand on his part,
That's how the evil,
when
yeah.
it says
is
arms
evil.
stand on his part, that means that there was other armies that were not the Pope's that were standing up for the Pope. They were fighting for the Pope. So when we're in Europe and we have the Germans and the English and the French, when the Pope wanted something done, who was doing all the fighting and killing? It was
They
the
were.
armies of the French, the armies
Well,
of the Germans, the armies of the
I'm just saying though,
English.
if you're a Catholic and you're inside the Catholic Church and you accept this, then you could just chalk it off and say, well, God uses bad people to do his work.
Because
I guess.
we have no more centurions. There's nobody ruling over 100 men.
No.
We have no of these. All that's done. That history of Rome is gone.
Mhm.
So
Now it's the army.
now it says an arm will stand on his part. In other words, that armies will give him the strength he needs to do what he needs to do.
Mhm.
What does he need to do? He needs to remove this so he can establish that.
Right.
Right. So it says.
And so he can get rid of God's people.
So let's read this. It
That's
says,
what
and
it's
the arms shall stand his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength. And how do they pollute the sanctuary? By putting their nonsense pagan stuff in the middle of God's
Mhm.
truth.
All of
They pollute
that
the sanctuary of truth, of strength, and they shall take away the daily, so it's going to be removed,
Mhm.
and they shall place the abomination to make it desolate. They're going to remove this to replace that.
Right.
And Miller figured that out. Miller's the one who figured out the daily.
I just want to say one thing. I was in Switzerland and seen the building where the Pope gets ordained.
You
Right?
did?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't take a picture of it, Mom?
Okay, one more quote.
Is it evil?
Over
That's
verse.
creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
This verse is in Daniel
The
12, verse
darkness.
11,
Fancy.
I bet.
and it says, "For
A seventh day.
from that time." Now let me ask this: that last one, this can't be Christ's heavenly ministry.
No.
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 It doesn't
No.
make any sense.
Yeah.
The fact
No, you're
The
right.
fact that our church, worldwide,
Mhm.
we're talking about the elite of the elite. Is Adventist below any other religion?
No.
No.
Are we more ignorant than any other scholars?
Yep.
No.
We are,
What?
but that's not. Sometimes, for the most part, no. But something like this, and grown men who study their Bibles take these verses and they allow them to be Christ's heavenly sanctuary ministry. You know what they're doing? They're not reading the verse at all. They're
No.
just taking daily sacrifice. They're going, oh, the daily, and in their
Well,
mind.
what they're saying is it just doesn't matter.
it doesn't
It's
make. Well, it doesn't make
They're
any
like,
sense
it's
either.
just a word, and that's not gonna.
It's from
but
the way
but-
they were taught, and
So
they're just.
if the daily's taken away, and it's taken away in 508, when this is being put in, so paganism is being put in, it has to end before that because it says that this was going to be taken away. This one, that would mean that God's heavenly ministry ended in 508. It didn't even make it to 1844. He left sanctuary a long time ago because the daily was taken away. It's gone. So verse 12. Or let's look at verse 10. And no, actually, we're looking at verse 9. And this is where all this comes so important. Now, we found out, when we talk about the midnight cry, that there was a light behind us, right?
Right.
And what happens if that light goes out?
You
You
fall.
can't see.
We can't
And
see.
you fall to the wicked world below. You think
Right.
you're going to get to heaven on that path?
Nope.
No, you need to be on that path with the lights on. If you turn out the light, Your feet fall.
Yeah,
Now, I'm not
'cause you
saying
can't see.
I'm not saying everybody's going to be lost if they don't accept the truths of the midnight cry. What I'm saying is if God put that light on your path and you go and turn it off, then your light's out.
Yeah.
Because God's going to hold you accountable for the things you knew.
For what you
And when
did.
men have great high gifts of God, they're expected and required to answer for that. You know, if I gave you 20 coins, I expect you to come back with 20 more. Or if I give you 10, I expect you to give me 10. But if I give you one and you hide it, you're not a part of this. You're out of here. You're a wicked servant. You should have put it in the bank. You should have done something, use it for usury. But when you just held on to it, you know that I'm a demanding God.
Nothing.
I want more than what I gave you. I gave you that, and you came back and gave me back what I gave you. It's like that's not God. Pretty much in that parable says.
Well,
it's
you know
not a
what?
good
I
thing.
kind of look at it this way. I saved it for you.
That's what the guy did, and God said,
Yeah.
"You were a wicked servant, but you should have made it increase."
But
See,
that
and
guy
this is
even
the
went
hard.
ahead.
This is the hard
Right,
part,
right.
though. That's what we were talking about earlier on the phone. Okay, and I said I'm the one. Like, if you give me rubles or something, whatever, I'm the one who says I'm going to take it. I'm not going to go party
But
with
let's-
it. I'm not going to go do bad stuff with it.
But here's the
I'm
thing.
going to save it.
Think
like
of
in a
it.
savings account.
Let's change the coin. What has God given you?
His life, my life,
Your life.
my
You now have salvation.
I have
And
a
if
bank
you don't-
account in heaven.
if you go, I'm
don't
saved,
share it.
and you don't care to save one more person, you are wicked.
Mhm.
I'm safe. I don't care about
Okay.
you guys. I'm not going to reach.
No. I'm just
I
saying,
don't want to bring
like,
anyone with me.
but I'm just saying, like, that makes more sense to me because if God gave His life for me, and and this is my gift.
It's all the same. It's just in a different form.
No, I understand,
Yeah,
but I'm just
so-
saying, but like financially, if someone did give me,
He
like, if
gives
I
it
won
to
the
you.
lottery, I would actually, the first thing I would do is save it. And you know what? You just made me think of something. Maybe the first thing I should do is pay my tithes.
But think about this. Let's say you didn't. Yeah, right. Well, you should do that.
Yeah,
anyways.
and then I should go bury it. I'm just kidding. That's a joke.
And so check this out. So the Midnight Cry says, and did Ellen White did she make up her visions?
No,
Who gave it to her?
God.
So her first vision wasn't Ellen's first vision. It was the first vision that God gave.
Gave her.
So the sovereign of the universe, through all time and history and creation, He said, I want you to observe this. There's a path, and behind it is lit a light. And if you let that light go out, your feet will fall off. Is he
You'll
lying?
be lost. No.
So, now, it sounds harsh, and it sounds like, wow, it sounds like, Rich, you're saying that only the people who believe like you, or like you're the only one or something. You know what? I don't know what the case is, but I know that it's going to be like Noah's Ark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you think every Seventh-day Adventist is going to heaven and everyone else, then you're going to have a sorrowful day, and you'll probably be a part of the sorrow part. I'm only telling you what God has said. He said, if the light goes out, your feet fall off the path, you fall, the wicked word below. I want to know what that is. I don't want to throw it away. So when it says that 25:20 is the second part of that, I'm not throwing it away. And when God says that His hand is in these charts and there's not an error anywhere, and I see 25, 25, 25, 25, 20 down here too, and there's and all that you've seen in the stuff that I've shown already. I'm sorry, but if you want to call that a mute point and throw it away, you're welcome to do so. So, but now let's look at it this way.
Because they say it's not salvation.
Let's look at this. This is another one of those very harsh things in the Bible. It says in Daniel chapter 12, and he said, "Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed until the time of the end."
The time of the
What
end.
book are we talking about?
Revelation.
Or what words are we sealing up till the time of the end?
Daniel.
The book.
The book of Daniel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Daniel is sealed.
Yes.
It's okay to see.
I'm going to use a different color because of the different subjects on it. It's not going to blend in with the other.
A brighter one, maybe, like a nice bright blue.
Now let's see what we got here.
Dark
His
blue.
shirt.
Okay, so we have the book of Daniel is, so the book of Daniel is sealed, right?
Yes.
Till the time of the year.
It's cold. It's freezing.
Until the time of the end.
Mhm.
Okay, now the next verse says, many shall be purified. I'm going to put this up here. Purified.
Mhm.
Tried
Mhm.
and made white.
Mhm.
What does that mean? What does purified mean? All the dross is going to be removed. You're going to be corrected.
Right, well, yeah.
Okay, and you're going to be tried.
Mhm.
You're going to be under persecution. You're going to be forced to say, I don't believe what you do believe, and you have to deny Christ, or you pass through. And if you pass through, God's going to make you white, and you will be in heaven.
Yeah, so I
Is that what they're saying?
yeah.
Many will be purified, made, tried, and made white. Does that mean that God's going to make you ready for heaven?
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Who? We can't answer that question yet. Now it says, many shall be purified, made white, and tried. Oh, I mixed them up. Made white and tried.
Okay.
So he's going to save you. He's going to correct your doctrines. He's going to save you. But then he's going to test you.
Mhm.
So purified, made white.
Okay. Purified, made white.
That's right.
Try.
So when in our day are we going to be made white?
In our day?
When we're being converted and we're getting ready for the Sunday law to come,
Right.
we have to have our characters white before the Sunday law, not afterwards.
That's right.
And it's going to test us to see if our garments are white, because the stains on our garments are going to change our character. It's going to be, we're going to get angry, or we're going to get violent, but we're not going to be able to endure because our characters haven't been purified yet.
Purified.
So we need to be purified, made white, and tried. Now it said, but here's the contrast. But the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand,
Mhm.
but the wise shall understand.
Understand.
Okay, so we have how many groups?
Two.
Two. Can we say that these are the wise and foolish versions?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we have two groups. We have the
Wicked.
the wicked,
Shall
no, and the wicked, and what does the other say?
Righteous.
No, it doesn't say right. It says
Wise.
and the wise.
Wise.
Wicked and wise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that, wicked and wise, can we call that foolish and wise?
Mhm.
The foolish versions and the wise versions,
Yes.
right? The wise got to be up top. Okay. The wise are going to do what?
Shall understand.
They'll understand. What are they going to understand?
The
The
doctrine.
truth.
The truth. The book of Daniel.
The book of
Verse 9 says, go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed until the time of the end.
Right.
So what is our subject matter?
Daniel.
The book of Daniel that's sealed. And God says many of the people are going to be purified, made white, and tried.
Mhm.
But the wicked will do wickedly. And the wise, the wicked, will not understand. What will they not understand?
They
The
won't
book of
understand the book of Daniel.
Is it important or is it a salvational issue to understand the book of Daniel?
Yes.
If you don't understand it, what does God say you are?
You're wicked.
He says you're wicked. The wise, you have to be in one of those two groups, the wise or the foolish, the wise or the wicked. If you're wise,
understand it or you
You'll
don't.
know part of it.
You'll understand.
You'll know a quarter of it.
And you'll be blessed.
You'll understand everything.
The wise will know the book of Daniel.
Mhm.
So, is that important?
Yes.
Do you think that, let me ask you this. What do these guys have that these guys don't? What do the wise have that the understanding, right?
Understand
Understand the book of Daniel.
of Daniel.
In the parable of the 10 virgins, who's missing what?
Oil.
Oil.
Oil. So is this the oil?
Yeah.
Some of them had the oil, some
And
of
some
them didn't
of them
have the
don't.
oil.
Some had the oil in their lamps, but they didn't have.
Well, they
Extra.
all
So
had,
your Bible, when
they
you're
all
studying,
had oil.
we're all studying the Bible, right? We all have the Lamb,
They
right?
all had the oil.
But some of us have
but-
taken the time to understand it.
But the foolish didn't have enough.
They didn't understand. There was no light coming out of Daniel for them because they're just going like there's beasts.
So basically, they're just people just going to church,
basically.
and they weren't
Basically.
like dissecting and trying to comprehend and getting ready.
The Bible is not a light
No, it's
if you
not.
don't turn on the switch.
Like you said before, they're just not just happy stories; they're prophecies.
Let's all go through the promises, shall we?
Well,
Oh,
the
he's gonna
promises
bless
are
me.
good.
Oh, I'm going to heaven. Oh, I'm going to have a happy day. I'm getting a harp. I get to fly. I can run without getting tired. I get to pet all the animals. And I don't have to eat them.
I don't never have to.
What
from the
about
beginning.
the part that if you don't follow my laws and do my ways and all these things, then I will rebuke you and I will punish you and I will make you. I will no longer listen to your prayers.
Mhm.
We cannot read the Bible how we want to read the Bible. We need to read the Bible the way God wrote the Bible.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, and want him to change us.
So this is clearly talking about the wise and foolish virgins. Isn't it?
Right.
And so what does it say in verse 11? So it says, and the wise shall understand. Then verse 11 says, and from that time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate is set up.
Wow.
Mhm.
So after this is removed, something else is going to be set up, right?
Right.
What's set up?
Paganism.
Gotcha.
It says, and watch this. So watch this. After that time, the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate shall be set up, and there shall be 1,290 days. So there's 1,290 days, right?
Mhm.
Guess what goes from 508? You had 1,290 instead of 1,260. It goes to 1,798. The 1,290 is from the taking away the daily until the papacy is set up
Set
and then
up.
removed. It says, and from that time the daily sacrifice have been taken away. So the daily is taken away in 508.
Mhm.
The paganism is replaced with papalism.
Mhm.
And it says, in the abomination that maketh desolate is set up. That's the papacy.
Mhm.
And it says,
1798.
there shall be
1,000.
1,290 days. That's going to be the daily is going to be removed, and the papacy is going to be set up for 1,290 days, which ends in 1798, because that's when the
Right.
papacy ends.
Mhm.
Can you make it any more simple? Does everyone get that?
Mhm.
Make sense, Chris?
Mhm.
So, now I'm going to show you what I was going to show you before. I'm going to show you the difference between the Christ and the Antichrist.
And what about 12?
What does 12 say?
Hey, question.
1335?
No. There's a question. So I
Let's
think we
see.
already know, like, with the whole papacy and everything, but what does Islam come into it? When are we getting there?
We're getting there. Notice that this is the
We're
top
getting
or the front. We start in Daniel 2 about prophecy, don't we? We start with the children, right?
Mm-hmm.
It starts here and it goes downward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes this way, right?
Mhm.
So if we start over here, the last thing on the chart would be down here in the corner. So if Islam's
Is
down
Islam.
here, we don't get there yet. We're getting closer, but we're not there yet. But we're gonna get there. So
Well, in reality, in real life, we're pretty close. We're getting close.
well, in reality,
So maybe
we're still pretty close down here on this.
Yeah.
part. So
The
now,
top-
you better finish
ready to
this.
be
You better
put
wrap
up.
this up and get to the nitty gritty before reality.
okay, you're gonna like this.
Reality is
You're gonna like
very
this. So watch
close.
this.
I know.
So watch this. So
I do too.
and then Edwin asked a question, and that's about verse 12, and it says, "Blessed is he that waiteth and come into the 1,300 and the 1,305 and 30 days. That's the 1335.
The 13.
So if you start out at, so watch this. So 1290 is from 508 to 1798. That's 1290. From 538 is 1260. That means there's 30 years right in here, but 508, 538, right? Now the 1335 from 508 takes you to 1843.
Oh.
But really, because it's a distance and not a date, it goes a few months later into 1844 to 1844. So the 1335 also takes you to 1844.
So blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the town.
So watch this. We're going through the dark ages, right?
Mm-hmm.
lot of heavy problems, a lot of trials, a lot of tribulation, a lot of people dying, a lot of suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you go through all of this, and this is one horrible time.
Mm-hmm.
Blessed is he that makes it to 1844, when I gather my people together again. Blessed are those who make it through this gathering. Blessed those who made it through the 2,520 years of scattering. Blessed who made it to 2,300 days when the sanctuary is restored. The blessing comes in 1844, and all the prophecies will line up like a glove. Now, some people they make a mistake, and they're still doing it today, and they say the 508 doesn't go into 1843 because it's after the year zero, or whatever the problem is, or whatever. And they say,
Right.
because that's not a problem, right? We found out that's not a problem. The problem is the fullness of the year. We have to go into so many months to make a full year, right? And that dragged us into another year. It's not a matter of a zero at all. So this is another number. 508, 508 years, adding 1335 is 1843 years. We still have to carry the months over from the beginning point, and that'll bring us into 1844. This one brings us to 1844. This one brings us to 1844. 1844, 1844. All these numbers are perfectly correct, and they all lead us to 1844. And the 1335 is not an exception. And here they have the 1335 minus the 1290 is 45 till the time of the end. But really, when we're doing with the dates, we end up with 1798, and when we take it to 1844, we have 46 years, and that's the building of the temple. But anyways, we're getting into tricky math again, and I don't want to go through all that again. So,
Please.
No, I think we're mathed out for.
all right, so no, we're gonna do the math now. So watch this. So you got 508, 538, 1798. So there was 30 years, 1,260 years, and then there was
45.
Well, it's 46.
No,
It's 1844. It's 46.
You're adding the 40,
1844 is 46 years.
45 then to the
If
month.
you minus 1798 from 1844, you get 46. That's
Can't you do?
45.
That.
Can't you do the math?
So here's the thing. Watch this. I'm going to get some of this a little bit.
No, I
Let me
understand the
start-
app. I
Let me
understand
go on
that.
to what I'm going to do. So this is the Antichrist. Is that right? So where is Christ? Christ. Let's do Christ line. How old was Christ when he started to preach?
30 years.
He was 30 years old. So there was 30 years in the setting up of Christ's ministry, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Was there 30 years in the setting up of the papacy?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then how long did Christ preach for?
3 years.
3.5 years.
3.5.
And how many days is that?
1260.
1260.
1260. Now, and what happened in 1798 to the papacy?
The deadly wound.
He received a deadly wound.
Mm-hmm.
After the 3.5 years, did Christ receive a deadly wound?
Yes.
Was the deadly wound healed?
Yes.
Did Christ resurrect also?
Yes.
Yes.
The Antichrist mirrors Christ.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow, now I like this math better. Now
Yeah,
this
for
makes more
every
sense
day.
to me.
All that
This
other stuff
makes-
was bringing us back to this. This is what I
This
started with.
makes
This-
way more sense to me.
That's a lot simpler.
Okay,
But
they go together. You're right.
Yes.
so
Yes.
notice this
That-
when we look at this devil,
I mean,
he wants to
For-
be like God.
Right.
well, I would know all that.
Because
But
but
he copies God in
everything
everything.
that's true.
No, but
He
there's
has-
going to be exactly.
There's no
Exactly.
For
originality.
everything that's
So
true,
everything
he
that
has
you come up with
a
is pagan.
counterfeit.
No, no, I know all that, but yeah.
So what this
No,
means,
this makes
what
sense
it also
to me.
means too, is that everything that's pagan
Mhm.
Right.
has its roots in God.
Mhm.
So that every counterfeit you see, you go like, well, that's a counterfeit, but he's counterfeiting something that's true. So what's the truth? So when we see the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet, what does that tell us?
There are three.
There are three:
In the
Three.
the
Godhead.
Father, the Son, and the
And
Holy
the Holy
Spirit.
Spirit.
When we,
Hey, but some churches, they don't believe in the Trinity.
that's fine.
No,
So
I'm just
now-
saying, but they don't.
So now, well, they have other aspects that'll be satanic.
Yeah, they do.
So when we get to Revelation, and it says, and the city was as long as it is wide as it is tall, what shape is that?
A cube. Or
Hold on. It's as long as it is wide, a square,
No,
a cube,
a
a,
cube.
Is that the only shape that can be those dimensions?
a circle.
No.
Circle isn't long and wide.
It could. Well, hold
Circle
on.
has.
The other shape that it can be is a pyramid.
Yeah.
It
Hold
can be
on,
as-
hold
it can
on,
be as-
hold
It can be as long as it is tall, and then
You're
the height of the
right.
pyramid can be as tall as it is wide.
Hold
and long.
on. Hold on. I was thinking.
It can be
Yeah.
real pointy and be double the height, or it can be real
Right.
short.
Hold on,
and
hold on.
Pyramid.
It could
yeah.
be. Say it again.
as long as it is
Long.
tall as it is wide.
Yeah, a pyramid.
You're right. It could be.
Mhm.
Okay.
So let me ask you this. If we know that heaven, the new city Jerusalem, can either be a pyramid, you don't give the answer, can either be a pyramid or a cube, how do we know which one it is?
Well, I don't think it's going to be a pyramid.
Well, let's go look at the devil. What does the devil do?
Actually, it could.
Let me ask you this. Does devil have worshippers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Does he like to set up a kingdom to be worshipped at?
yeah.
Yes.
So, who was worshiping him in Egypt?
The
The
Egyptians.
Egyptians, and what were they building?
A
Pyramids.
pyramid.
To do what? To worship the sun.
Mhm.
What about the Aztecs?
Pyramid.
Pyramid.
And
Yeah.
what did they do? They cut hearts out of the top of the pyramid
Right.
and
Worshiping
held it up
the
to the
sun.
sun, praying that sun would
To
show
the
up
sun.
tomorrow.
Mhm.
Mhm.
They
They
thought if
did.
they didn't appease the sun, he might not show up and they'll freeze to death and their crops will die. They knew that the sun was where they got their life, so they worshipped it.
Mhm.
So we know that when Satan sets up his satanic kingdom on earth to worship him, because they weren't worshiping God, they were worshiping Lucifer, weren't they?
Yeah.
Sun worship?
Uh-huh.
So when he sets it up, he's only copying God. He's been in heaven. He knows what the kingdom looks like. It's a pyramid. He says, I'm going to set up my kingdom here, and I want to be God, so I'm going to have a pyramid too. That makes me God. Because if I have a pyramid, then I'm God.
That makes sense.
But if I don't have a pyramid, I'm not
That
God.
makes
Because he
sense.
doesn't, he has to copy.
Mhm.
So let me ask you this else. So was Lucifer a covering cherub? Does God have two covering cherubs up on each side of his
Yes.
throne?
Yes.
And Lucifer was a covering cherub.
He
right?
was, wasn't he?
Yes. He was.
That's why he was so proud of himself and was such a great angel, because he was above all the other angels.
Right. Because
The covering cherub is like right next to God. I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right. He was like
And
this.
there
One
was-
wing down
there
and
was
one
a
wing up,
mercy
going like,
seat.
this is God. And the other angel's going, this is God. Right? So,
And there
If-
was a mercy seat in
so
heaven. There still is.
can Lucifer be God, or can anyone be God on earth without two covering cherubs?
No.
You could.
Well,
You don't have to be a copycat. But Lucifer doesn't understand that. In order to be God, he thinks he has to be like God.
mhm.
If he had the ability to create, he could have
Because
he
he's
could have four dogs instead of two covering cherubs. You don't have to do it that way.
No.
But because God
He
is
said-
God and he was trying to copy, he wanted to be like him,
Yeah.
he's going, well, I need two covering cherubs. And so if Lucifer was a covering cherub, and how was he represented in the garden?
Oh,
Lucifer in the garden.
how was he was
Serpent.
represented as a serpent and a snake?
What kind of serpent?
With wings.
Oh yeah, a winged
A
one.
winged serpent, right?
A what?
A winged serpent, right?
Mhm.
So,
'Cause it could
if you look
fly.
at the artifacts of King Tut, his
Yes,
throne had
that's-
2 winged serpents on the
That's true.
side.
That's true.
Because he's supposed to be God, right? Pharaoh is God, right?
Right.
He cannot be God without 2 covering cherubs.
Cherubs.
Not according to the way that Lucifer saw it.
Right.
So he says, this is how you play God. You
Because
sit in the
he
throne and you
said,
have 2 covering cherubs. But
But
are we talking about heavenly cherubs?
I will be like God.
No, we're talking about Satan's kingdom, and he's
Satan's,
represented
yes.
as the winged serpent, not the winged angel.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you watch the movie The 10 Commandments, you know when Charlton Heston comes in with
Oh,
his
the old
with
one.
his arms on the stocks and the chains, and they're going like, "Oh, why do you betray me, Moses? I've treated you like a son." Seti, who was the king at the time, is sitting there with the female that's wishing that he hadn't done that. She wanted to be with him and not with Yul Brynner as Ramses. If you look behind him, there's 2 birds on the wall. One on this side going like this, and one on the other side going like that. They're covering cherubs on the back wall, even in the movie. Satan always has covering cherubs.
Mm-hmm.
And so, also, because that's the religion in Egypt and the religion in South America, and since all of Satanism is all the same, it's all Satan, and he always is copying, then when you have the Vikings and they have the Norse god,
Mm-hmm.
they are fighting in dragon ships
Mm-hmm.
that have shields laid up like scales,
Mm-hmm.
and the sail represents wings because it blows in the wind.
They always put
And now they're fighting in the winged serpent.
Ah.
So because Satan always copies, the argument, aside from all the other arguments of the Trinity, is the dragon's power, is the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. There's 3 of them. Then there's 3 in heaven because he only copies.
Mm-hmm.
He always copies.
Yeah, he does.
So if let's say that let's say that the Holy Spirit was just a mist that came from the Father, the Son, and they just shared it and it wasn't a person, and it didn't have its own individuality, then guess what? The papacy would have a duality. It wouldn't have a Trinity. Because whatever God has is what Satan's going to copy.
Makes sense.
So anyways, we'll go ahead and end it there and call it a day. But appreciate you coming to the study.
No, this is a good. I like that the way you wrapped it up. That was good.
That was good.
And if you watch
One more,
you'll
please,
know that
Virginia.
every time we're
Adam.
done, everybody always says, "Oh, that was a great study." They're all great. Watch them all.
Oh, yeah.
So, you want to close this up?
Why don't you just say
that
this real
was
quick?
really good.
We're not just making videos here. We're
I'll go ahead and close that. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much for this study today. Thank you for the great controversies passed out today at the Capitol, for those who are protesting the vaccinations. And Lord, the contacts that were made, I prayed before I passed out the books, and I asked you to make me available and to do whatever. And people came up, and some of them want me to speak in their churches. So I pray that you'll bless that, and that they won't forget. And if it's possible, then I will go and share your truth in other denominations. And so we just thank you, Lord, for your loving kindness. Thank you for the messages you've given us. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to know and understand the book of Daniel, to have the light of the midnight cry, and the ability to not reject it, though all the people around us do. It's easier to follow the crowd than it is to stand alone with truth, but not if you have faith. If you have faith, all you need is Jesus.
Amen.
And I pray that we will all only need Jesus, and that we will stand amongst our brethren who don't want to hear certain truths,
not errors, certain truths they don't want mentioned. And then they're going to ask you if it's a salvational thing. I think we showed through the parable of the 10 virgins that clearly some of this is salvational, whether we want to admit it or not. So Lord, just keep us. I pray for anyone watching this video that they will continue to watch. They'll go back and watch the others that they haven't. And we just thank you, Lord, for your loving kindness. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.